Guys ready?
Do it.
The meeting of the Board of Ellis County Commissioners will now come to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don, if you could call the roll.
Commissioner Dean Hazelhorse,
Present.
Commission Chair Butch Schleier,
Present.
Commissioner Dustin Ross.
Present.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you. And order of business, or any changes to the order of business?
We do have one executive session, Mr. Chairman.
One executive session, okay. We have no prior minutes. Consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through G.
I second that.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes 3-0. Are there any issues from persons not on the order of business? Looks quiet out there. Any introduction of new employees?
I'm very pleased to introduce our newest employee in the Ellis County Clerk's Office. Sharon has joined our crew, and I'm happy to have her.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It'll be nice working over there with her.
There you
Feel
go.
your face.
Thanks
Good.
to all you,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we're glad to have
Welcome.
you.
Well, good. Thank you.
Okay, our next agenda item is the ARC Park dirt work request. Sarah?
Hello.
Hi.
Wait for them to come up. My name is Sarah Meitner, and I am the board president at the ARC of Central Plains. And we are the folks that are trying to build an accessible recreation complex here in town. Just for the record, to give you some background, it'll be a fully accessible play space for people of all abilities and ages to play together independently and collaboratively, so that it makes our community a more welcoming and inclusive place, and just allows for more opportunity for kids who otherwise might not have a safe place to play. We have been working on this project for over 2 years. We introduced it to the community just over 2 years ago, fundraising for the project. We've raised about $650,000 toward the first phase, which will be construction of a playground. The playground will go in at, is expected to go in at Seven Hills Park at 33rd and Hillcrest. We're kind of here nearing the final steps in this process. We will visit with our board next week for some final approval from them, and then we will be at the city commission the week after that for approval from the city. So if all goes well, we hope to build the first phase within the next couple of months, or as soon as we can order equipment and get it received. So my question to you all today, in looking at our numbers, we're working with a developer out of Lenexa, and looking at those numbers, they gave us a total install for the playground just over $100,000. Within that install, he gave us some line items and had within that some work that could possibly be found elsewhere, and one of those was dirt work. The site prep would be the very first group into the park, and utilizing the dirt movers that you all have to do that site prep for us. The value of it, the quantified value of it from ASCO, our partner, is just over $12,000, right? As I say that, okay. It's in the packet that you have. I guess I should probably point out what we have. We'll start off with a map of the park. We are looking specifically at the red portion, which is phase 1 with the playground. Phase 2 would be a splash pad and parking lot. Phase 3 is an all-accessible turf baseball field. Within that packet, there also is a close-up view of the park. There is a scale map so you can see how much dirt work it might be. There would be some perimeter moving and then some berms to be built with that excess dirt. And there is a scale there. And then within that, there is that breakdown of the total install cost that I described. So it says site prep, excavate approximately 9 inches depth, repurpose soil to build perimeter berms, $12,637. Our total quote from ASCO is in there as well. And finally, we have a sponsorship level. As we have done our fundraising here within the community, we have quite a few businesses and individuals who will be recognized on a permanent donor wall that will be constructed at the facility. We would love to have Ellis County listed as a donor in that leadership level, the 10,000 plus level, to recognize the dirt work that the in-kind work that the county might provide to us. I don't know if you have any questions beyond that.
Mr. Bill Ring, would you come up?
We would be looking at a September to October time frame for when we needed to do the work. And I did give Bill a call.
Bill Ring, Director of Public Works. Yes, sir.
Just, and looking at it, I mean, it's basically removing dirt, putting it back in for a berm. Is that using scraper, loader, et cetera? Is that what you're thinking?
Correct. They were trying to get it, because with the 4th of July holiday, reaching out to the contractor to reach out to me, so we could probably get some more quantified numbers on, how many cubic yards and exactly what they're looking at. But Sarah and I had a nice chat. We probably talked for a half hour, and I think it's a great idea, the project. And I don't foresee, if we've got 3 months to work it into our schedule, I believe we can do that, no problem.
Okay. Answered my question.
And then, as it points out, I did talk with city staff to make sure that, with us working on a city park, and everybody's fine with that, so all I just got to do is communicate with their Director of Parks, Jeff Boyle, and I talk to Jeff, weekly, so there's no issues with them.
Okay.
Commissioner Roth, any questions?
No questions. I think, first of all, I'd just like to, I guess I'd just like to say how amazing it is that you guys have raised the amount of money that you have. I mean, per citizen, man, woman, and child in this town, you've gotten $30 out of every one of them. So the idea of doing that, I think, definitely shows that people want this to happen. I mean, and I know of quite a few people that have dug pretty deep for it. I do love the idea of Ellis County getting that leader level, only because we'll be using the taxpayers' money to do that, and we want them to get the credit for that. And as long as Bill thinks that our dirt work equipment is proper to get it done, and we can get it done for you in your time frame and stuff, I think this is a perfect opportunity to build a park that'll be used by a lot of kids, and including mine, who go over there already before it's really nice, like you guys intend it to be. So, I'm 100% in favor of it. I did get to have a good discussion with them the other day. We probably sat for an hour and discussed it. I told them the nature of what was going on, and pretty much Bill was the guy they needed to go through. If Bill thought we could handle it, then I'd imagine it wouldn't have been a problem from us. So that's all I have on it.
I did have a brief discussion with Bill a little bit earlier, and of course he had no problems with it. And again, I think it's a very worthwhile project too. So I'm all on board with this.
Yep. Get her done.
Let's get her done.
Awesome. There you go.
Yep. Thanks, Sarah.
You guys. Yeah.
Okay, then we have the Hayes Medical Center cancer contract. Is Jason here? Yeah, we'll come back to that. If he's not here, we'll come back to that. Sheriff Office contracts.
Good afternoon, Ed Harbin, Ellis County Sheriff. I'm here tonight to talk about extending 2 of our contracts that we have or use in the jail. First one I'll talk about is the Crown Correctional telephone contract. And we want to renew this and extend it because we use that for inmate communications, and with the COVID virus going around, the way we operate is different now than what it was 3 months ago. We will be getting some more equipment in the jail so the inmates can communicate with their attorney confidentially. And they get some sanitizer to kill the virus in the jail. And they will pay for all the equipment and maintain all the equipment. So it really doesn't cost us anything. And then they've also cut the fees for inmates calling their family. And so that would be a 5-year extension on that one. The other one would be for the advanced correctional health care. And we currently have a nurse on the floor for 30 hours a week, which has come in handy. And in extending our contract, we'll get some training for the office, and it's about a $2,000 value in training. They'll be moving some of our prescriptions to a pool, which will give us a savings of almost $1,700. They've dropped our per diem rate per inmate from 84 cents to 40 cents a day. And then there'll be some other savings in there, which would amount to maybe $5,000 to $10,000 over the term of the contract. So we would request that you would sign both contracts.
Are the contracts, both of those entities are working out real good for you, Ed?
Very well.
Okay, no issues with things?
No issues whatsoever.
Okay, great.
I have
Questions?
no questions. It's one we've done years ago, so.
You know, I had the privilege today in our Rotary meeting to hear a couple of the jailers speak about the jail and talk about how much help it is to have the nursing staff available. You know, before they were trying to keep track of prescriptions and drugs, and this is without any prompt talked about how great it is to have that around. So, you know, I think that's an important thing, especially considering the amount of our inmates that utilize medicine in the jail. So, yeah, no, as long as you're happy with how they're doing things, I think we're in good shape with them.
Yeah, I'm very happy with them.
Do we hear a motion?
I move the commission approve and sign the attached contracts between the Ellis County Sheriff's Office, Advanced Correctional Healthcare, and Crown Correctional Telephone, Inc.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the Personal Protective Gear Grant. That would be Darren.
Evening, Commissioners. Darren Meyers, Director of Fire and Emergency Management. Before you tonight is just another grant that we've applied for that we do annually with the Kansas Forestry Service. It is to supply wildland protective gear to the firefighters. Basically at a 50% cost reduction. They give us 50% of the reimbursement back for what we purchase. I think we've done this for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's basically paid for the majority of all the wildland gear that we have for the county firefighters. Just ask the commission that the commission accepts the grant and allows us to move forward with the purchase.
Great idea.
I think it's good.
Darren says you budget for this. You're ready for this grant every year.
Correct. Yes, we budget. We initially had a 5-year plan to replace all of the personal protective gear, which is at the start of it was the structural fire gear, which is not what this gear is replacing. But since I started several years ago, we've actually put more people on the department, so it's actually going to take us 7 years to get everybody new gear, which is a good thing. But then on top of that, as those numbers started getting smaller purchases each year, we've added into the wildland gear as a second set of gear to be used on like a grass fire today when it's 100 degrees out. The firefighters become less exerted. They don't become overheated as easy. And it's dual purpose for both rescue type incidents as well. So that way they can save the durability on the structural gear, which is about 3 to 4 times more expensive than this gear, prolongs the life of that gear as well.
How long does this gear typically last? Does it depend on the season?
Manufacturer's recommendation usually varies between 10 to 15 years. I usually push the longer as we can because we don't use it every day like the Wichita Fire Department does, where they're out constantly training. going on calls, so I try to get the max life out of it that we can.
Perfect. This looks good.
Okay,
Thank you.
proceed.
Thank you.
Have a Public Works open position. Bill?
Bill Ring, Public Works Director. Before you this evening is a ask to replace an open position at the shop. One of the mechanics decided to seek employment elsewhere, so therefore gave us an open position. And I'd like to be able to try to fill that if possible.
How many mechanics do you have right now, Bill?
2.
And you need a third one, right?
Yes, sir. We waited almost, 11 months to get to where we were, and we lost it, so it's, we went 5 months with full staff, basically, and so it's,
And the position's budgeted.
yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
I believe we've talked about this. Those mechanics save you quite a bit of time and money. So,
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with
Yeah.
refilling.
Okay, proceed, Bill.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, the next item is the 2021 budget review. Mr. Cox.
Well, good evening. I think on this particular item, we will just, I realize that prior to me coming here, that a lot of work has been done on the budget, and we're to this point where I think we're looking to you all if there are any questions or any direction or anything you'd like for us to do with it from this point moving forward.
I guess there's still a couple of bullet marks here that have to be addressed. And do we have any idea when those health insurance quotes will be in?
The Wage and Benefit Committee has a meeting on July 9th in the afternoon to meet with the first round of the initial proposals for the health insurance. We'll meet with Julie, I believe it's July the 9th. So I'm hoping to have something by the to the commission by next week. Depends on how it all goes. It might be an agenda item, but we may not have an actual proposal, what actually, what each benefit is going to be, because I won't make the deadline in time for when the commission packet gets published. However, JD and I will be working to get the information together, and hopefully have the budget updated with the new numbers, so that way you can see how it's going to directly impact the budget for next year.
Okay.
It's just going to take some time, because going through with all the different figures and then changing each individual, 151 employees, I believe, is what we have on the health plan, switching those over and then going back through and then updating the complete budget spreadsheet to show how those dollars will be impacted overall.
Okay. And we also have a position allocation funding between the Treasury and Appraiser departments. Gentlemen, you have any more thoughts on that?
I can start. I have a couple of thoughts, things that I've been weighing on this. The first thing that I think is important for us in the future in budgeting is understanding the amount of time that our elected officials work. I remember in the budget presentation for Tom Drees, he keeps track of his time. He keeps track of the amount of time that he works. To the T, and he shows us how much he essentially donates to the county in a given year. I think for us, in terms of budgeting, I think it's important that we know and understand how much an elected official is working. And the reason for that is if we're paying for more positions just so that any of our elected officials don't have to put in time, I don't think I want to do that. I think I would much rather us tighten that budget and expect our elected officials to put in at least 40 hours a week in their jobs that they get paid substantially for. So that's a question that I have. It's a question that I presented to JD. It is probably a bigger question for Bill in how and if we can monitor that, or if it would just be based on the elected officials' willingness to show us. But
Bill Jeter, County Councilor. Yeah, it'd be voluntary on the elected officials. Okay,
who
that's what I
don't,
figured.
who have no responsibility to account for their hours to the commissioners or anybody else.
Okay,
They can come and go and work as hard or as little as they want to, as long as the operation and function of their office is being served.
good. Yeah, and that's kind of how I figured it would be. Obviously, we have much more control over the employees, not the elected officials, in terms of knowing when they're working and how much they're working. But, you know, I would think that if any of the elected officials were unwilling to tell us about the amount of hours they're put in or show us, I think we could make some assumptions. So that's my thought process on that. The other question that I had for JD when we talked earlier today is in the appraiser's office. I believe we have a 3/4 position that is funded.
It's unfunded
Is unfunded right
Unfunded,
now.
right.
Okay. So
in the 2020 budget, excuse me.
Oh, in the 2020. Okay. Okay. So, you know, my thought is that that department needs a position.
Correct.
Yeah, I just feel like we're getting too far behind and we're putting more stress on other departments potentially with that. So at a 3/4 position, I'd love to try and get it to a full, and especially when we start talking about the length of time that some of the employees have been in that department and the potential for training as we go forward and start losing staff to retirement, you know. Thank God Ellis County is a great enough place to work that people are willing to stay here for long careers. But it puts us at risk if we don't plan and bring some sort of youthful knowledge to the tasks at hand. As far as the Treasury go, that's where my concern with the time that's spent in there is, because it seems like they don't have a problem keeping up with things, constantly, you know, boasting that they're ahead of schedule on things. And for that, unfortunately, it makes it seem like that they're well staffed. And when I look at last year and the lack of amount of overtime hours that they used when they were down an employee through the tax time, through tax season, it makes me think that they can handle it. The one olive branch that I would put out there, though, is that there's a lot of precedents in the state of Kansas that the commission actually handles the investments for the Treasury. So if Lisa were to tell us that if we don't budget her to get her enough staff, that she couldn't take over, that she can't keep up on that type of thing, which is incredibly important because it's money raised for our county, I think we should consider as a commission some sort of funding from our side to hire a financial advisor and keep track of that. But as of right now, I think it works just fine. And the only thing that I would caution from our board is that if it were to get to a point where any treasurer down the road were to have issues with keeping up on the financial end, that we be willing to step in and take over the finances for the investments of the Treasury. None of the other stuff, because we're not statutorily obligated to that. And I think that we should be willing to fund that in whatever help we need for our administrator or for us to make sure that we're doing a good job of that.
Sure. So are you proposing that we reduce some of the treasurer's budget?
My proposal is to reduce that one staff member, and that was why we had requested people come, just like Bill did today, to discuss with us. I think we needed to look really closely at what we were doing. We're $101 shy of a balanced budget right now. If I knew what the health care stuff was going to come in at, I would say we need $10 of subsistence from so-and-so departments, and I'd balance it. But I think we got to wait until those numbers are there to make a actual determination on that. And you know, the last thing I guess from my perspective is, you know, I think this budget will end up healthier than it looks going in. But one of the big questions I had, and I don't know if JD knows, but I imagine Darren does, is what are our assumptions on our sales tax collection? Are we working with the state to get those assumptions?
So we originally, and through the budget process as well as the last couple months before then, when we were out doing sales tax presentations, we were basing the revenue rates for both sales tax off what we collected throughout 2018 on the sales tax for the old buildings. When we came in and got everything sent to the state for the new sales tax that goes into place October 1st of this year, their assumptions were a little high than what we were. It's 2 years after that. There's been, I believe, like a 0.3% increase from those years. However, I still kept the budget with those conservative 2018 numbers, just with COVID going on. I didn't want to plan for too much. I believe the difference was it was about $100,000 for the general sales tax, and just over $200,000, $220,000 difference for the healthcare tax.
Okay.
So we won't truly start knowing what those monthly figures are going to be until December 1st of this year,
Right.
when we start collecting them.
So you want to reduce a position in the Treasurer's Department?
Yeah, I believe that that's the right amount of staffing for there. It just seems like they're always ahead of schedule, and if someone's always ahead of schedule and always doing well, and we have another department that isn't, I think what we need to do in order to keep our budget in check is to reallocate that position across the hall, essentially.
Commissioner Hazelhorst?
Kind of the same thoughts, maybe just a touch different from Dustin, but I did do some checking around and appraisers across the state, and it does show that Lisa is definitely down. I mean, she's down, most appraisers I talked to, they feel she's probably down 2 to 3 positions, which kind of surprised me, even though I know she told us to. So thinking of the budget in mind, I guess I'm in favor of one position there. Darren, do you know, is the treasurer down 3 positions now as of the latest resignation, or 2 3/4, I guess?
2 3/4, yes.
Okay. And I did call some of the treasurers that I know across the state. They said their foot traffic definitely with COVID-19 has definitely went down, and people are using the online service. The older folks are struggling with that, and are still wanting to walk in. I don't know, without hearing from Lisa, and she's not here, is she? If her foot traffic is way down, I'm assuming it probably is from the times I've been in and seen Darren at his office, but I know she was overstaffed by 2 positions, I believe, is that correct?
Correct. It was
When
basically the appraiser was down 2, the treasurer was up 2, according to those
okay.
12 counties we looked into.
So I mean, I guess.
Those were our peer counties, correct, that we had determined?
It was like Finney County,
Yeah.
I
McPherson,
remember all of them. He had
Martin.
quite a few of them, like 10 counties, I think, or however many there was. There was a bunch they checked on. So I mean, I guess if she was down, a full 3, I guess a 3/4 position, what she used to have would have been fine. I don't know that we need to hire another full-time with the latest resignation, but I mean, if we can get by where she's at right now with less foot traffic coming in, I think it's a great idea. If we have to go back to a 3/4 position, I'm in favor of that also. But I know we didn't build that into the budget, I don't believe, at least not until we see the healthcare costs, correct?
The budgets, the way they sit, are as staffing sits now.
Okay.
As if both the treasurer is that, or the appraiser is the unfunded 3/4 time position, it's not in there again for 2021. And then the treasury is the same as it is staffed now, all 10 3/4 positions. That's between treasury and
Most
motor
of the peer counties
vehicle.
were at 8 positions, is that correct?
Correct.
Just slightly over 8, I believe. on the
Like
average.
8 and
And to reduce
a quarter.
to reduce a position in the Treasurer is approximately $55,000.
Correct for their, I'll pull it up here. Depending on which position that they would move, because you can't really say what the bottom dollar is, because with longevity, their salaries go up. It would be between 50 to 60,000 on that position, because it depends. You hire a new employee, their health care package, that's a $10,000 to $12,000 difference from a single plan to a full family plan. So if you budget the long way, it could be up to 60,000 a year.
And I guess we need to cut one.
Yeah, we could cut some.
The other thing that I would say, gentlemen, obviously, our contention and the back and forth between us and the treasurer is pretty well written now across the media. You know, the other thing that I would say is in terms of our investments in the county investments and the potential that the commission needs to take over those investments. You know, I've got a concern that in a lame duck session, as long of a lame duck session as a treasurer gets in the state of Kansas, which I think is just needs to be changed. You know, my concern would be that we also watch and monitor as well as we can from our positions the investments of the county in the future if there happened to be a lame duck session. So, you know, I believe that is why the case law, and maybe go to council again. I had discussed with the president of the Kansas Association of Counties about this, about the idea of now there's precedence of commissions taking over the investment pool of the county. I don't know if you've seen any of that case law. Or
I have not, Commissioner. I can do some research.
I might have him send you some of the information that he talked about, the
Appreciate
few
that.
counties that they had that, and it actually went through the court systems to discuss. So,
Okay.
but it's something for us to always keep in mind through this process of budgets and elections.
Definitely.
Okay, I'll just expand a bit on what you said, Dustin, regarding hours worked. And I have no direct knowledge of to how many hours our treasurers worked. I have talked to several department heads, as well as some past employees. And I've been told that on any given week, our treasurer might be working 10 to 12 hours a week. As a taxpayer, that upsets me, because when the taxpayers elect a department head, they should be electing a full-time employee. And also come to find out that our treasurer doesn't even have a sign-on to our software system. So I just don't know how that works at all, when you can't get onto the system by signing onto it, and you're never supposed to use someone else's login. So I don't have a problem at all removing a position from the treasurer. I think we need to do something and see how this develops as we go forward. So, Mr. Cox, remove a position from the treasurer, that's salaries and benefits, and we'll move that to the budget of the appraiser for 2021.
Okay?
Okay?
Yes, sir.
And then I
And,
guess as that, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. May I ask one more question?
Yes.
So, and then for the appraisers, you'd like for that .75 hourly person, or excuse me, let me restate that 0.75 FTE to go to 1.0. Is that
Yes.
correct?
That's
Okay,
what
very good.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion?
No, I think
And then
once we
Butch.
get some healthcare quotes, I think that's when we need to relook at it. If that's okay with JD to get it back on once we start seeing and panning down.
Certainly.
I have every intention, I think you guys do as well, through the discussion of balancing this budget, and then as the budget goes through, I hope that we have better sales tax numbers than we expect, but I do appreciate Darren for being conservative in those numbers, because I think that's important for budgeting. The last thing we need to do is be surprised with numbers that are lower than budgeted, and because it just doesn't look good on our behalf as budgeters. So.
Okay. Moving on.
Butch, before you move on real quick, Dustin, did you happen to talk to some other treasurers that was using outside firms or whatever, or not? Just by your comment, I didn't know.
No, it wouldn't have been treasurer. So the discussion I had was with the Kansas Association of Counties president, and I was at a meeting, seeing their new offices actually, and I got to sit in there for about 20, 30 minutes and just got to talking, small talk, and had a discussion about our treasury, and he he asked me how much I knew about the investments of Ellis County, to which I said, I don't get to look much into that. It's another elected official, and it's relatively well hidden from what happens to me. I don't know if you guys get to see more than I do, but it's relatively hidden. And that's when he discussed a couple cases of counties that went and took over the investments of the Treasury. And of course, the treasurers in those counties then decided that we needed to figure this out statutorily, where this power lies. And it went through the court systems, and it was found that the county commission actually can take over the investments of the Treasury. So part of the thing that I think is good knowledge for the tax base is that in Ellis County, we weren't investing money for a lot of years, to the tune of losing millions and millions of dollars in potential revenue over all those years. When we had an election that Lisa won, the Democrats then put a guy by the name of Josh Wassinger in, and over his 10-month-ish term in the Treasury, he made quite a few changes to our Treasury, where we renegotiated our banking contracts, he started investing our money, and we went from paying $1,000 a month to have our $20 million bank account to making money off of our money and not being charged a dime in fees. So, and that's what can be seen in last year in a very vibrant economy in nearly $600,000 in revenue. It's not like it's aggressively invested. It's in very safe things. You're talking that's a 2%-3% return on investment. But when you have $22 million that you're dealing with on a year, 2 to 3% is quite a bit of money, and it funds quite a bit of department. So I think that it's definitely something that any commission should keep an eye on. And it was eye-opening to me, the idea that we would have the authority to do such a thing. I don't think we should. I don't think that we should proactively go after and take over the investments. But if we're taking a position and a treasurer felt like they couldn't handle the important thing that is, I think we should be willing to take that on for them if they so choose, whether it be Lisa or one of her challengers, as we're taking that position away. So it was just a thought that came to mind.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Questions?
Nope, I'm done.
Okay, moving on. County Administrator Report.
Jason's here too.
What's that? Oh, excuse me.
Yep,
Excuse me. Jason is here. Jason, come on up. About some contracts here.
Jason Kennedy, Health Services Director. What you guys have before you is a contract for a biomed. They service all of our durable medical equipment. They service and inspect it every year, actually 2 times a year go through, and basically just recertify it. The contract this year is really unchanged. It is a significant amount of pages, but it has been reviewed by council. It's honestly the cheapest and the best contract that we're going to find. If we contract with the individual providers of our equipment, it would be significantly higher. They do a phenomenal job, and they're right here in our backyard, so keeps the money local.
Okay. Questions?
Jason, on something like
Done
this,
before.
would we have to send the stuff off to have it? I mean, seems like it would be more expensive in shipping than it would be in what they're charging us.
They actually, I'll tell you what, they have been a really good resource for us. They kind of handle things that they probably don't even have to. They'll take the equipment in. A lot of times they come to us and do most of our equipment in kind of a swath. They come through and do each ambulance at a time and certify a bunch of pieces. And then if we do have a piece that is out of certification or something that they can't fix, they actually will handle the shipping and stuff. They'll send it off to the company. They'll get it back from the original company, make sure everything's right for us, and then get it back to us. So they, being local, they really have taken care of us. And like I said, I think they probably do a little more than what they even would have to by contract. So.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move the commission approve and sign the attached contract between Hayes Med Center and the Board of County Commissioners of Ellis County.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 3-0.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Jason.
Okay, now we'll move on to County Administrator Report. Mr. Cox.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you. First of all, I spoke a little bit earlier and I failed to introduce myself. My name is J.D. Cox. I'm blessed to be the new county administrator here in Ellis County. And today is my third day. And we have a lot going on. I'm finding out pretty quick, which is a good thing really in the end. But we do have some challenges to deal with too, and I'll get to a couple of those in just a moment. But I do want to thank you all, first of all, for this great opportunity to be here. We have enjoyed it immensely in our very short time that we've been here so far. It's just my wife and I and our little pup, Froggy. And we have 3 children that live in other places, but we're looking forward to them coming to visit us soon. I'd like to thank the staff who has really reached out to me and has made me feel very welcome to be part of the fold. And also to the community. A number of folks showed up a little bit earlier this evening to welcome me. I've gotten a few phone calls as well, and it's been really, really nice. I'm looking forward. We just heard Jason talk about the relationship with Hayes Medical Center, and I'm looking forward to meeting the folks at that facility, as well as I already have heard from the president from Fort Hays State. I'm looking forward to meeting them. I met a number of Hays City Commissioners today, I met one already before that even, but I met a couple others today, and I'm really looking forward to really getting involved in the community and getting to know a number of folks. So I won't belay that, but we really have been thrilled to be here, and I'll get back to a little tour we took a moment ago in a moment. So we have been busy in these 3 days that I've been here. One of the things I wanted to mention to you all is we had the special meeting, as you know, last week regarding the mandatory face mask issue. I have gotten a little bit of communication about that, just kind of more of why and that type of thing, and I have responded to those those questions, and I have assured them that based upon what we have learned, that right now with our numbers so low, that taking draconian steps just doesn't seem to be in order, but if the situation changes, we're certainly going to be on top of it. We're going to be watching it, and we may be calling for a special meeting if we meet that point in the future. And we would look to you all for your guidance, of course. But I wanted to let you know there are a number of counties have taken action on this that have been very similar in actions that we've taken. A lot of our peer counties, as well as larger ones, Reno County, for example, have taken similar actions. It's just very different in rural locations than what it might be in Wyandotte County or Johnson County or Shawnee County. So I wanted to share that with you, and I've gotten quite a bit of correspondence from other counties in this very short period of time. On a very similar note, I wanted to share with you, I also have received some communication regarding the CARE Act, in which we are to schedule, I believe it's 5.7 million, or is it 5.1, Darren? 5.7. 5.7 million is earmarked for us. We are under a little bit of a short period of time for us to take action, but I did want to share with you one thing. I guess there's 2 schools of thought, which is better, to not have money or to get extra jackpot, and then what do you do with that extra money, and how do you fairly distribute that? I wanted to share with you that there are several counties which have taken an action to help them to process that process. So a few have set up committees to be kind of a sounding board to receive those requests for funding, and then to make recommendations, maybe set up some sort of metrics on how to evaluate the various requests and help to set some priorities. Of course, it would still be Commission's decision on what you chose to fund, but that could be a helpful thing. I just wanted to mention to you just for food for thought. I have received also a couple of the counties have contracted out with consultants to provide that extra support to them. I'm not saying that we need to do that, go quite to that extreme, but that also is being done. So there's different ways that counties are doing that. I think I'm very much picking up that we make decisions based upon what Ellis County needs are. However, it's kind of nice to hear some other things that might be going on just for additional ideas. So you might think about that. If you have any suggestions, we can certainly bring back. I believe at the next meeting, we already have scheduled a resolution for the CARES Act, correct, Darren? So it's possible if you have some thoughts on that, if you'd like to do something additional, we could perhaps build that in. Possibly, I haven't even met with Bill about that. I haven't had a moment to do that yet. But I wanted to pass that along. I just found all that today. So very good. And let's see. The other thing I've got two more quick things. One is I was going to share with you. So I mentioned my wife and I spent a greater part of a day a few days ago, the day we had the big rainstorm, and we drove around. Before that, we drove around the counties, went to all the cities, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. I remembered it being nice, but I was struck by how beautiful it really is. I know the rain helps a little bit too, but we really live in a beautiful place here, and sometimes the grass seems greener on the other side, but we really have a lot to be thankful for here. Anyway, we did that, and we came back to town, and we drove into the community, and then the rain, the storm started approaching, the wind started going, and I said, oh no, and my wife said, why? What's wrong? And I said, well, we're in a haze now. So we knew we were back. With that, I wanted to recognize one more person. We have, I'm going to move locations if you don't mind.
Sure.
So when you take a position like I've just taken, the transition is always really important. How is that going to go? And mine has been outstanding, and it's been outstanding because of one person, and it's Mr. Darren that's sitting right here. I also have come to find out that in this period of time, since Phil left, the former county administrator, and until probably even still now, that Darren has done a phenomenal job for this county, for this organization, for the citizens of the county. So I'd like to ask Darren to come up and join me, if he would, please.
No.
Sorry, you don't have a choice on this one. So I'd like to present a certificate of appreciation to Darren Meyers, and I'll just read it to you real quick. In recognition of a job well done, interim county administrator, and for his unselfish diligence to ensure a smooth and successful transition for the betterment of the citizens of Ellis County. Thank you very much, Darren.
Darren, you have to show us. You have to show us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. This is the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Hazelwood.
Wheat harvest is about to end, thank God, and all is good.
Good harvest this year.
Good harvest and one day to go.
There you go. Commissioner Roth.
I have a couple things. I guess I'll start with the CARE Act stuff because that's a couple conversations that I've been having. Very rarely in the history of Ellis County government has the federal government come in and thrown this much money at us to figure out how to spend. And so I don't know if you guys have had your phone ringing, but I sure have, of how these funds can be spent and the best way to make sure that we make them spark our economy back to going. So when I heard that the federal government was putting $4 trillion into the economy, I didn't know how the heck they would do that. 1/4 of the national GDP at one time, I just couldn't figure it out. Even giving $1,200 to people isn't even close to 1/4 of our incomes, our spending, so now we're starting to see where that money is in terms of this. And so I've had a couple conversations, one with Jason Willoughby representing Fort Hays State, and a discussion that we had was one that JD and I sat down with the president and do a little bit of work to see if there's any way that we can help Fort Hays through this transition of students and classes and things like that. A couple good ideas were thrown around, but I'll save those until we know it's even something the money can be spent on. I also am trying to keep in contact a lot with Doug Williams at Grow Hayes. I've asked him to be a good liaison for us, and so he's been setting in on a few of the meetings of things that can be spent, money that can be spent, and how. And so, you know, I'm trying to do my best to learn about that. I am going to set on 2 Zoom interviews. I believe you guys probably got the emails from that as well. I'm going to set in on those just to see what kind of ideas have come out and what things are okay. Second thing, the census, we're lagging a little bit behind in Ellis County on the census. Us rugged individualists are not sending back our information, but I think it's important, and I think people should go and get their census filled out. It really helps our schools. It really helps our government entities to make sure that we're accounting for people properly. So I would encourage that, because we started lagging behind, even though we were, I think, a little ahead in the beginning. And tomorrow I will set in on a quarterly luncheon for Grow Hayes. I'm going to learn a little bit about this hot real estate market from Doug Williams and what JD is probably dealing with now as he looks for a house. You got to be quick, which is a good thing, and very perplexing to me in the economic times that we're setting in. So, but I believe that's all I have. Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay.
And I do have next week, I do have a meeting on talking about the CARES. We have a KAC meeting next Thursday.
Very good.
So we're going to bring that up, and I'll let you know, too, Darren and JD, what that comes about. It's kind of the same thing you're talking about,
Okay.
on how much money is coming to Kansas and the do's and don'ts.
Good.
Yeah,
That's
there's going to
it.
be contingencies.
Oh,
on
yeah,
that.
yeah, we've already seen a small list, and I think Darren has too, also seen a list on there, what can and can't, but they sent us out, all the KEC members last week, they sent us out a small list, and I guess the big list is coming next week, so.
Yeah, I think keeping our major employers in mind as they went through a tough economic stretch here. Hayes Med Center, I'd love to sit down with them at some point, or have JD sit down with them, and same way with the school systems. We're supposed to be somewhat of a pass-through entity, and from what I've heard from Darren, you know, all the spending that we've done on COVID-19 was already covered in a grant. So is that correct?
Close. We're still collecting. I had Lyle send out an email today to make sure we don't have any current receipts, but they should be reimbursed under a public assistance grant that we're doing with KDM. And if they're, and that's the same as any other agency that we deal with. However, if we use that funding that we get reimbursement under the public assistance grant, it shouldn't be eligible under the CARES funding. So agencies won't be able to double dip, and that's something a little bit what JD was referring to as the administrative part of this CARES money, is making sure that those monies are being allocated and spent correctly.
Okay. Just have a kind of a personal little report here. Last week, I believe it was Friday morning, I went fishing. And just to show it can happen to anybody, but I fell out on my boat. And I lost my glasses. That's why I'm wearing my sunglasses. I lost my remote control for my trolling motor. It broke. And I only caught 6 fish that day, plus I had public embarrassment. And that was a high price to pay for six fish. So, and I found out one thing. I got a ladder on the back of my boat that's a fold-up ladder. Without that ladder, there's no way I could have got in that boat. Perhaps when I was Studley back when I was about 25 years old, maybe I could have, but no more today. So that, if you have a ladder on your boat, don't ever take it off, because you just might need it. And with that, I think we have an executive session.
I move the Board of County Commission recess into executive session under the following exemption to the Kansas Open Meeting Act pursuant to a non-elected personnel matter exemption. Subject to be discussed during executive session is a new county position. Open session will resume in 15 minutes. Those attending will be the commission, Mr. Bill Jeter, and County Administrator.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Donna.
Okay, there's no action, and the meeting will adjourn at 6:11.
Dustin, forward me that stuff on.
I'll have to reach back out to him and And